Many of you have been explicitly asking me to build a small forge, so I'm going to do that today. And here's what I have to work with. I have a bunch of these bricks and offcuts and stuff, extras from building the furnace. Now the idea I have in my head, I could build with 8 bricks almost instantly and it would be a piece of cake. I don't have 8 bricks. I have 5.5 and a bunch of offcuts. So I got some work to do. But here's my general plan. 3 full thickness bricks on the bottom. Full thickness because someone told me they had used half the thickness ones, put it on a truck bed, and the heat got through and melted the bed liner. So I'm going to do full thickness and then not put it on a truck bed. And I'm going to take one of these bricks, going to re-saw it like this. So it'll be half the thin, half the thickness. Thinness, whatever. You get the idea. What is half the thinness? Does half the thinness make it twice as thick? Because it would be less thin. But I'm going to cut one of these in half. It would be called re-sawing in wood. Like if this was a plank of wood, cross-cut, rip, re-saw. I'm going to re-saw them in half. Stack the 2 re-sawed parts like this, cut the other one, re-saw it in half, stack those 2 like this, hole in the top for the burner, and then I'll have this platform front and back for like other pieces if I want to block it off. I probably won't use this one to block it off, but I'll be able to make up a bunch of these bricks and stick these together with that refractory mortar that I had. Satanite, the refractory coating, it does work as a mortar. And then coat the inside with Satanite and do the firing, and then we're done. But I'm not going to build a frame around this. I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to mortar these main bricks together with Satanite. And I want to do that because I want to be able to take it apart and stack the bricks nicely back up on the shelf over there. And they'll be out of the way. That's also doubly helpful because I don't have any tools required to do blacksmithing. So it'll be a little while. Now to resawing is very tricky because you have this long thing that you got to cut through. To make it thin, you don't want the saw wandering. You also don't want to cut at an angle all the way across because that just looks dumb. So I'm going to use this again and the combination square. Now these bricks are 9 by 4.5 by 2.5 thickness, and I've seen different thicknesses for these bricks. You can buy these bricks 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, 2.5, 3 inches. If you start with thinner bricks, then you don't have to resaw them. Or if you start with a design that doesn't require this, you'll have the same nice benefit. But when have I ever made things easy on myself? I can't remember a time. Now don't get your hopes up that I'll be doing much of any forging in the very near future, because I don't have an anvil, I don't have hammers, I don't have tongs either, or basically anything else required for forging. But in due time. I'm doing this right now though, because I have all these bricks. Why not, right? Now this, if you remember, this is a guide to help keep the saw from leaning over. I lay it on the line, and then I put this next to the wood and plunk, push it up there, and now we have a flat surface, a square cut. I'll try to angle this so you can see, but just keep in mind I'm right-handed, and I'm too lazy to move the camera to the other side. Wear a respirator. This dust is not good. Now while I'm marking up this second one, I should mention these are light insulating fire brick. What that means is they're mostly porous and they just handle a high temperature. They're not particularly strong, that's why I'm sawing it with this home cheapo saw. And they're also very well insulating. However, not all light insulating fire bricks are alike. Most of them that you buy, they're like $5 each. Most of them are like 2400 degree melting temperature, rating temperature or whatever. This is a 28 on it. That means these are good for 2800 degrees. So they're rated to handle that kind of heat. Now 2300, the normal cheapo fire brick, might sound kind of low to you because the forging temperature of steel, yeah, not far off from that. And often you'll find people who run forges made out of just these end up melting the bricks. But these are higher rated, so hopefully they won't melt quite as easily. Another thing you can do is coat it with Satanite. I've mentioned that before. It's just a coating that's good for 3200 degrees. It's also resistant to flux. If you've seen forging videos, and if you're watching this, I assume you have seen some, people can forge weld, and they usually cover it with a flux, which is something to get impurities out, I think. But the Flux, which I think they use borax, not 100% on that, but it eats away at these bricks. Borax is really aggressive, so when you're casting, borax eats away at the crucible too. It's not great, and it eats away at these bricks. Satanite is more flux resistant, so that'll protect the bricks from getting eaten away. I'll put a link to where I got these higher temperature ones in the description. If I don't, someone yell at me, please. I know you will. Alright, those are cut. The thickness varied ever so gently, but that doesn't really matter. It's not super critical that they be perfect, which is good, because I'm making them. Alright, so these are going to sit like this on the top, and the burner is going to go through the top here. The burner I'm going to use is this one. This is a forced air burner. Air goes in here, propane goes in here, and it was made by Roy at Christ-Centered Ironworks. He sent it to me. He is a professional blacksmith, but to my knowledge, he does not sell these burners. He does, however, have a video on the burners, which I will link. If I don't, someone yell at me. And that's going to go here on the top, right through the middle. However, I don't want the hole big enough for this to fit through. I want this to sit on top and have a hole big enough for the fire to go through, and that's about it. So I'm going to use my other burner. This is mine for the furnace. I'm going to cut a hole roughly that big. So that'll be big enough for that the fire out of there to go through, but not big enough for that hole to go through. I kind of want it to seal on the top. I want to get it roughly in the center. Good way to center find, go corner to corner. Got a little bit of hump, I didn't cut these perfect. Put a line through the middle, other corner to corner, line in the middle. So there's the center, right there. I'm going to unscrew that, place it right there. Bingo! Now I'm going to cut this out. The way I cut that out with the furnace, I actually put a hole dead center through the middle of a brick. And that was more challenging. I had to drill it and then file it big enough. But this, I can just cut on the edge, so it's much easier. You can use the same file though. This stuff files real easily. There, so that's that. This is called a microplane. Got it at Woodcraft many years ago. Don't know if they still sell them. This one's pretty dull if I'm working particularly difficult woods like Purple Heart, kind of abrasive. Anyway, that's not important. One important thing, you might have seen I was sawing it on here, not off the edge where it might have been easier, because I wanted the whole bottom side supported on the wood. And then I was filing like this. I was very careful not to stress this, because these are brittle. Now the 2800 degree fire brick, the different temperature ratings have different properties, and I think the 2800 degree one is relatively strong, but I still didn't want to risk it. See, they go together, and now I got a hole. Bingo! So first assembly, 3 bricks, like so, 2 side bricks, like so, top bricks. And now you have a big opening front and back. You don't really want that. This, not really big enough to block it off anymore, but I have tons of these. You know, if I had another full brick, I could take it and just set it in the back, and that would block it off quite nicely. This has got a hole in it, obviously, but I don't have another full brick. Or if I cut one of these in half, resaw that, I would have a back plate, but I really want this thickness here. So what I'm going to do, even though you might not have to if you just buy bricks and make this, I'm going to take these triangle offcuts and glue them together like this, using Satanite, and sort of build up a wall. Move that over. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these pieces and glue them together and then stack them all up in sort of this shape. So I'll have 2 of them. I'll be able to move them if I need to pass through, or stick them up if I want to close the end to have none of the heat get out. I'll probably make another one to close the front up a bit, but I got a bunch of chunks of this, so you know, sky's the limit with options here. So the way I did this before was to scoop some Satanite into this mason jar, and you're supposed to add water and mix till you have a sour cream-like consistency. I am my own paint mixer. Insert another joke about the shake weight. Still too liquidy. More Satanite. To get the mortaring action, you want it to be a little thicker. Now the mortar, this stuff is mortar, doesn't seal it very well, so you will have to be careful. But I won't have to order more fire bricks, so that's nice. Yeah, that's better. And basically, you take a foam brush, squidge it out, put on a nice sloppy coat, sloppy and thick, then take the other piece and mush them together like a bricklayer. Mush them together. Not too hard, you don't want to break the bricks. It's not going to hold it real great, but there's a lot of surface area here, so that'll be nice. And continue. Big, thick coat. That's pretty sloppy craftsmanship there, myself. And squidge. And then when you got these sections, I like doing the rectangles like this first. I say I like, I've done this like twice ever. Squeeze them together with another thick layer between the pieces. Of course, if you just buy a bunch of fire brick to start out with, you won't have to do any of this. You know, normally you don't have to make your own bricks out of old chunks of bricks. And then when you get it all together, then coat the inside face. Well, we'll face this face into the fire. Ta-da! And repeat. The last thing you want to do, take these bricks apart again, open them up, and paint the inside, all the inside faces with this Satanite stuff, just like I did that. Then, let it dry. But I'm not mortaring these together because I want them to be disassemblable. Running out of space for large furnace-like objects. These things, they're not small. Now would be an excellent time to cut forward until the boring painting is done. Ta-da! Much time later. You may notice that they are different colored, and that's because I did a little bit of the heat treating already off the camera. But before we look into that, I want to mention they stack up quite nice. They're pretty secure, and that's because the edges of the bricks are still nice and crisp. And as long as I'm very careful, they'll stay this way. However, if I'm rougher with them, the edges will crumble because these are really brittle, and then it won't stack so nicely, and I'll have to make something to hold it up. But I'm going to be really careful. That's my plan. Really careful. You see, here's one of the rear bricks. I assembled this out of the offcuts. It works pretty good. And what I can do with these is this. I have a pass-through, you know, or if I put this back there, then I'll have a sealed surface. The more sealed it is, you know, it keeps the heat in. Pass-through obviously allows me to do long things, to put long things all the way through it. Now you can see, even though this is made of multiple pieces, it's held together pretty well by the Satanite. However, if you want my opinion, don't do this. Just buy another brick. I just did this because I had these scraps and I didn't know what to do with them. But Satanite is not a very good mortar. If you were to, say, be holding this and, you know, maybe stumble a little bit, it could come apart. Solid bricks are much tougher, so just use a solid brick. Speaking of solid bricks, I can block off the front too. Like, say I just want this little opening, you know. It's easy. I'm probably going to get more bricks eventually just to do a slightly better job of this. Now for the top here, this is where the fire goes in. Plan is to take this burner that I showed you before and attach it to some kind of bracket that will hold it here. But I want the burner and the bracket to be freestanding and this to be freestanding. I don't want this to have a bunch of junk around it because, like I said, I want to be able to take it apart and stack it on the shelf out of the way. But that's going to be part of the burner, kind of separate, and I might integrate it into a table. We'll see. The downside, of course, being if I'm not careful, when it's red hot, I can knock it over, shatter it, and chunks of red hot brick are going to be flying everywhere, including all over my legs. So that's not so great. So maybe if you want to build a fire brick forge, check out some other videos, build a different one. Don't build this one. It occurs to me that this Satanite coating has a couple of steps beyond painting it on, and I talked about them in the furnace build, but not the forge build. So here, I'm just gonna give you the cliff notes. Paint it on, let it dry, give it a couple days. Then what you want to do is use your burner, heat up the forge for just a moment, and then let it cool down and dry. And what that does, it draws more of the moisture out. Then when it cools down, you hit it again for a little longer, and so on until you're definitely sure it's dry. Then you take a burner. This is my foundry burner. I'm just going to use it because it's not forced air, so I can more easily just hang on to the thing. You take this, light it, and heat the thing up good and hot. I'm probably not going to do that because I'm in the garage right now, but I'll kind of give you just a quick show so you can see how it works. Now I don't have enough propane for a complete casting, but I do have enough to just fire this thing up a little bit. So we get our match. Boom! Let's get some air. Open the air holes. There we go. Get a nice good burn. You don't want yellow. Yellow is rich. You don't want rich. You want more of this blue color. Blue. So anyway, it's going to operate a bit more like this, with the fire going down into the hole there. And the way you cure the Satanite, after you get it nice and dry, you fire it up and wait till it's good and hot, like turning red hot. Nice and usable temperature. Then, lastly, you take the thing out, turn the fire off, and let it cool down. When it gets red hot, and then you let it cool down slowly, it sets in this furnace lining and gets that nice and ready and resilient to the heat. Then what you can do is add coats. You can put up to like a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch coating of this Satanite stuff, and get even more protection. And again, this is not only heat protection, it's also flux protection. Stop the flux from messing up the brick. It's already turning red. It's starting to glow. Yeah, that's pretty red. It's not quite up to total temperature, but it's all I'm going to do. And there you have it. Quick and easy forge. This took very little time compared to the furnace. You can pick and choose whatever burner you like. I suggest not my burner. Probably go check out the video of the other one being made. And because this one, you can take it apart, you can store it away on the shelf, out of the way when you're not using it, which is where this is going to go, because I don't have an anvil, I don't have a hammer, I don't have tongs, I don't have anything except the forge. But that's fine, I got plenty of projects to work on. But you asked for it, so here it is. And before too long, I'm going to try forging stuff. Not to spoil the future too much, but I'm thinking aluminum bronze casting is going to result in a pretty sweet aluminum bronze forging hammer. But before I do that, I gotta get more propane. I had enough to do this, but I don't have enough to do a casting. I'll get to Menards eventually, don't worry.